Hi, this is Law 850 Case Study by JMaisog. So in this case study, I assume the persona of Principal Keith Sample. This is based on some copyright laws recognizing that all intellectual works, programs, data, pictures, articles, books are automatically covered by copyright unless it is explicitly noted to the contrary. That means that the owner of the copyright holds the exclusive right to reproduce and distribute his or her own work. For software, this means it is illegal to copy or distribute software. It is its documentation without the permission of the copyright holder. If you have a legal copy of a software, you're allowed to make a single archival copy of the software for backup purposes. However, the copy can only be used if the original software is destroyed or fails to work. When the original is given away, the backup copy must also be given with the original or destroyed. That's kind of the background at which we are working this case study off of. First, let's go ahead and look at some of the facts. This happens at St. Regis School, which is located in a small town, rural area, 25 miles from a large city, serving grades kindergarten through 8th grade, with approximately 420 students, 20 teachers, a librarian or librarian/media specialist, and the principal. The main financial support comes by way of 2 fundraisers put on by the PTA. These are some of the people that are involved in the study. Mr. Sample, which is me, the principal at St. Regis School. Been at it for 3 years at the job. Did not grow up in St. Regis, therefore I have worked at building positive rapport with the faculty, staff, and community. I do understand that a copyright infringement has occurred at school. I have been made aware of that. Mrs. Lynn is a library media specialist at St. Regis. She also became a computer lab teacher as well. She's worked with me and teachers to acquire software for school use. She's made copies of the software and distributed it to other teachers in the school. And she believes that she is helping the district save money while giving the best resource for success to our students and teachers. Mrs. Williams is an experienced teacher at St. Regis. She's always taught here at St. Regis all of her career. She's purchased 2 software programs that Mrs. Lynn has copied. She also received a copy of the other softwares copied by Mrs. Lynn. She was very appreciative for the work that Mrs. Lynn has done to get software to the classrooms. Mrs. Brandon is a new teacher at St. Regis. She has 3 years prior experience at a different district. She purchased 2 software with instructional funds as well, which Mrs. Lynn copied and distributed to other teachers also. She had an issue with the copying done and believed that it is a copyright infringement. She communicated that with Mrs. Lynn, and she also brought up the issue with Mr. Sample, me, the principal. Mrs. Evans is the PTA president. She helped in the fundraisers for the school. She volunteers time with Mrs. Lynn at the library. She assisted in copying the software. She's glad that the money raised was being stretched to help students and teachers. She attempts to acquire materials for the advancement and success of teachers and students. Here's what's happened. So the Parent-Teacher Association raised funds for teachers to be able to purchase educational software for school. Mrs. Lynn collaborated with the staff to purchase software for the computer lab. Teachers use the computer lab on a scheduled basis for their classes. After 4 months of the scheduled lab access, teachers wanted to expand the software access for every classroom to be more successful. And the plot thickens. Mrs. Lynn thought it was a great idea by the teachers. So then she and Mrs. Evans created copies of the educational softwares. Once the copies of the computer programs that correlate with 3rd grade objectives were made, Mrs. Lynn distributed the freshly copied CDs to the 2 3rd grade teachers. Mrs. Williams received her copy and was very grateful for it. However, Mrs. Brandon had reservations about the copies made due to her experience and knowledge of copyright laws from her previous district. Mrs. Brandon communicates this with Mrs. Lynn in a professional manner, and Mrs. Lynn does not take it very well. Mrs. Brandon then takes it up to Mr. Sample. And so therefore, Mr. Sample confronts and communicates with Mrs. Lynn about it and warns her of the consequences. Mrs. Lynn argues that the PTA would be glad of the savings that she's created, and she justifies her stance by stating that the nearest big city is 25 miles away, and that, even Mrs. Evans, the PTA president, helped in making these copies, and no one would ever have to know. This occurred during the school year after acquiring new educational software, 4 months after using the purchased software. And then The copying occurred after school hours, possibly, and the distributing occurred during school hours. Here's some reasoning for the actions some of these people may have taken. The teachers wanted more accessibility to software for students. Mrs. Lin could quickly and cheaply do it. Mrs. Brandon had prior experience from previous district on the seriousness of copyright infringement. Mr. Sample, me, I have a duty as a school leader and administrator to monitor, ensure, and adhere to laws, rights, policies, and regulations, and to make sure that my school is doing the same thing. So after the facts, let's go to the issues. It seems that a group of several teachers in the school were in on it, as they encouraged Mrs. Lin to make the copies for everyone. Somewhere along the lines of, we can use the software on a broader scale as a reasoning. Mrs. Lin knowingly creates unauthorized copies of the software and distributes it to teachers. We are a small district, large city 25 miles away. Do you really think anyone will know? Is her justification. Mrs. Evans is complicit in that, as she came in to volunteer at the library and help create the copies, believing that the PTA dollars were stretched to help teachers and students. Mrs. Williams is complicit in knowingly accepting an authorized copy for her classroom, an unauthorized copy, to help students have the best resources around. Mrs. Brandon is the only one to step up and say that something is wrong. The district may be lacking a policy or has not disseminated policy on copyrights for all staff to be knowledgeable about it. Mrs. Lin gets snarky with Mrs. Brandon for being courteously warned about the possible trouble they may get into. I don't care what you did in your old school. This is St. Regis. Here are some possible damages that were done. The software companies whose software has been illegally copied and distributed would be suffering from not making their profits. The school may be looking at a possible lawsuit and owe the software companies monies. The trust and relationship between staff, administrator, and the community may be damaged. Students learning from a bad example as it unfolds before them. Here's an example from the Houston Independent School District. It's a much bigger school district. On Dynastudy, the company whose copyrights were violated is a small company. A staff member made notice that something was wrong in distributing unauthorized copies of study guides. However, that staff member was ignored, and in the end, the Houston Independent School District was ordered to pay Dynastudy $9.2 million for violating copyrights. And they had to pay for every instance that it had occurred with every teacher at the school who were involved in it. And here's a summary of the conflict for me as an administrator. I would need to find a way to do damage control to mitigate the risk of high-dollar lawsuit without burning all the bridges that I've built with the staff and the community. Some of the relevant facts, known and unknowns. Again, it's a St. Regis school. The principal, librarian, teachers, and the PTA president are all involved. The program is kindergarten through 8th grade, and the infraction was shown to light at the 3rd grade level. Some of the unknowns. Is there a district policy in place that deals with protection of copyrights? How long has Mrs. Lin been a library media specialist? How many software copies actually were made and distributed? Why was I not made aware that copies were being made at my school? The copyright laws that we broke, the 1976 U.S. Copyright Act and its 1980 amendments, remain vague in some areas of software use and its application to education. Where the law itself is vague, software licenses tend to be much more specific. It is therefore imperative that the educators read the software's copyright page and understand the licensing restrictions printed there. And as a librarian and media specialist, this should have been something that Mrs. Lin had knowledge of. Next up, we have the information priority. The situation has great possibility in costing the district and community a significant amount of money. Staff jobs are at stake, students are watching and learning, more investigation would be needed in answer to some of the unknowns. There is enough known information, however, to formulate a plan of action and make decisions. Here are some of the options that we have. Either take no action and let what happened happen and tell Mrs. Brandon that it's okay, destroy all the copies made and ask all the teachers who received the copy to return it and destroy it, call a staff meeting, include everyone in the decision-making process, fire Mrs. Lin, it was her mistake and she insisted on continuing despite being warned. or damage control. Use the proper procedure and chain of command that Mrs. Brandon has started. To evaluate these options, if we take no action, I can pretend that no violation occurred, then I wouldn't have to worry about it. My staff can figure it out themselves. I can divert my attention to more pressing matters. However, the cons: a violation did occur and have been made aware of it. I would be negligent in not doing my duty as a school administrator. My leadership will come into question. The full consequences of breaking copyright laws may come down on my school staff and district. This is a pretty serious matter. I could destroy all the copies that were made. The pros of this: if there are no copies, then it's as if it never happened. It's a quick solution. No one else needs to be involved. Time, money, and resources could be saved. A violation did occur, however, and I have been made aware of it. It may not prevent a repeat copy of copyrights infringement in the district. Staff relationships may suffer, and it's a short-term solution. I could call a staff meeting and include everyone to voice their opinion. We could work it out as a community and promote team building. The end result would have had input from all stakeholders. However, an all-staff meeting may take a considerable amount of time. Not everyone will be happy with the end results. Some of the staff members could be singled out. And I'm the administrator. I need to be the one to take responsibility in helping make these decisions. I could just fire Mrs. Lin. The blame goes to one person. That person's eliminated from service, and everyone sees how serious the consequences are for breaking the law. It's a quick solution. The cons: relationships would be damaged with the rest of the staff that were also complicit with Mrs. Lin. It's a harsh lesson, and it might have been Mrs. Lin's first offense, and it leaves little room for growth. Damage control: it uses the chain of command that Mrs. Brandon has started, collaborate with other administrators, and come up with a plan of action. Software company may also be part of the solution, long-term solution, and it keeps relationships intact. Trust can be built, and success for all is in mind. It could be a long haul, and it may cost the district some resources. In the end, I think the best option would be damage control, as the administration as a team can come up with a decision after a thorough investigation. Software company involvement may create a positive relationship for future partnerships. The staff and community relationships are kept intact by using a methodical approach to the situation instead of an emotional knee-jerk reaction. It helps us become proactive with possible creation of a district-wide policy on the issue. Most likely plan to create a positive outcome for all stakeholders involved. Here's an example of a solution that both parties kind of agreed with. Rutgers, a major university, issues cease and desist order in the use of the block letter R to Ruston High School. Representatives from both schools worked out a feasible agreement. Rutgers was lenient to Ruston in accommodating changes to conform with the law. Relationship between schools were not damaged. It's an example of a positive way to resolve conflict and did not cost the district to owe any monies to Rutgers. Funds could be used to modify and improve Ruston High School instead. So in implementing this option, I would first take it up the chain of command, the district superintendent and the school board. Then we would work together to come up with likely outcomes, creating an understanding of the situation with everyone involved, collaboratively coming up with a solution, and consequences will be doled out as administration as a whole sees fit. It would involve all stakeholders who need to know, including the administration, software company, PTA, school staff. It should have a wide breadth of transparency as well. I could not do this on my own as the law was broken. I would need more support from those higher up in the chain of command, especially if there was not a policy already in place for the district. The warning that Mrs. Lin was given, however, she insisted on rationalizing and justifying copyright infringement with saving money for the district while giving access to educational resources to teachers and students. She could not see that it could cost us even more money. The plan B would be, it's practically built into this plan, as it's damage control that involves all administrators necessary. It's a possibility that the previous options may be the ones that the team decides upon. A creation of a committee in charge of the district policy and copyright laws would also be a feasible option. So in the end, it is my duty as the principal of the school to assist the administration and school board in creating comprehensive copyright policy for the district, to mitigate damages in having to owe the software company any monies, and also moving forward have a relationship of trust with my staff. Here are some of the references that I use. Thank you for listening, and I hope that the seriousness of copyright laws has been expounded by this short presentation.